I didn't find out our $420 million patent had been licensed to 3 of our biggest competitors from an email. I found out because my phone started vibrating non-stop while I was standing in line for coffee, and when I glanced at the screen, I saw the name of our general counsel flashing like a fire alarm. 3 missed calls, 2 texts, 1 voicemail that just said, "Call me, now." That's when I knew it had finally happened. Not the licensing, that part was deliberate, but the moment when they realized the company's crown jewel no longer belonged to them alone. And the best part? I hadn't broken a single rule. 12 years earlier, when I first joined Calder Dynamics, nobody knew my name. That was kind of the point. I wasn't sales, I wasn't marketing, I wasn't one of those executives who liked hearing themselves talk in town halls. I worked in the space where ideas quietly turned into assets, intellectual property, licensing frameworks, defensive patent structures, the stuff that didn't look exciting until it saved the company hundreds of millions of dollars. My official title by year 5 was Principal Intellectual Property Strategist and Lead R&D Liaison, but internally, people just called me the closer. If a patent was sensitive, I touched it. If an idea could be stolen, I locked it down. If a deal looked profitable but dangerous, I wrote the clauses that made it survivable. The $420 million patent, the one everyone would later panic about, had my fingerprints all over it from day one. I helped architect it, not just technically, but legally. I knew where every safeguard was buried, every contingency, every quiet little rule nobody bothered to read unless something went very wrong. And things didn't go wrong until Ethan Calder walked into the building. The announcement came on a Monday morning, packed into a last-minute all-hands invite titled Leadership Update, The Future of Innovation. That was the first red flag. Corporate never uses words like future unless they're about to break something that already works. We filed into the main auditorium. Glass walls, brushed steel railings, the kind of place designed to make executives feel important. I took my usual seat on the aisle, 3rd row from the back, close enough to hear everything, far enough to stay invisible. Then Ethan stepped onto the stage. Early 30s, tailored suit that still somehow looked like it belonged to his father, perfect hair, perfect smile. The kind of confidence you only get when you've never had to earn it. "Most of you know me," he said, gripping the podium like he owned it. "But for those who don't, I'm Ethan Calder, Acting Chief Innovation Officer." Acting. That word did a lot of work. He talked about modernization, about speed, about cutting through legacy bottlenecks. I noticed he never said people, but everyone knew who he meant. Then he clicked to a slide titled Flagship Assets, Streamlined Ownership, and that's when I saw my name. Well, sort of. Where it used to say Lead IP Authority, Final Signatory, it now said Technical Advisor. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to change. It didn't. No announcement, no explanation, just downgraded, quietly, surgically. I felt that slow, familiar tightening in my chest, the one that comes when something important has been altered without your consent. After the meeting, I went straight back to my office. Same layout as always, glass walls, single desk, patent binders neatly stacked on the left, dual monitors angled precisely 30 degrees inward. I logged in, opened the internal patent strategy vault, and clicked on the flagship project. A notification popped up. Access level, viewer only. I blinked, refreshed, logged out, logged back in. Viewer only. That wasn't just unusual, it was a direct violation of R&D protocol. Lead architects always retained editor access, regardless of title changes. That rule had existed longer than Ethan had been alive. I didn't storm into anyone's office, I didn't send an angry email. I did what I always did. I documented everything. Incident B came 2 weeks later. Board-facing innovation review. Big room, long table, Bottled water lined up like soldiers. I was there to walk the board through the defensive licensing roadmap, the part that explained why this patent was worth $420 million instead of $80. Ethan went first. He clicked through slides I recognized immediately, not because my name was on them, but because I had written them. Same structure, same phrasing, same risk mitigation language I'd spent months refining. When my turn came, I stood up, opened my mouth, and got exactly 6 words out. "Let's not get lost in legacy thinking," Ethan said smoothly, cutting me off. "We're moving faster now." A few board members nodded. One frowned. No one defended me. After the meeting, legal sent out an updated internal filing. Primary innovation sponsor, Ethan Calder. Contributor, my name. That's when I knew it wasn't ignorance. It was intentional. The breaking point came late on a Thursday night. I was still at my desk when an automated alert hit my inbox, one I'd personally helped design years earlier. Governance exception flag, IP ethics review bypassed. Someone had pushed an exclusive licensing deal without approval. I opened the document. Calibri 11. We used Garamond 12, always. The metadata timestamp showed edits made under an executive override code that only one person in the building had requested access to in the past month, Ethan. And buried inside the revised draft was the change, the one line that told me everything. A retroactive alteration to the territorial exclusivity clause. Illegal, unethical, and catastrophically stupid. Because that clause was wired to something far worse. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, and felt something settle in my chest. Not anger, clarity. He thought he was undermining me. What he'd actually done was hand me the keys. I opened my drawer, pulled out the old policy binder, the one nobody touched anymore, and flipped to Appendix D, Clause 7.3b, and I smiled. Then I started making calls. I didn't make the calls from my office phone. That might sound paranoid, but when you work in IP long enough, you develop habits. The company phones were logged. The VoIP system kept metadata longer than anyone admitted. And once Ethan started playing games with access controls, I assumed everything was being watched, if not actively, then retroactively. So I shut down my workstation, grabbed my jacket, and took the stairs instead of the elevator. Our building had 18 floors. R&D was on 12, legal on 15, executive offices on 17. By the time I hit the lobby, my head was already moving faster than my feet. Outside, the air was sharp and cold. I crossed the street, ducked into a coffee shop that knew me well enough not to ask questions, and took the corner seat with my back to the wall. Then I pulled out my personal phone. The first call was to Mara Lynn. Mara had been at Helix Systems, one of our biggest competitors, for almost as long as I'd been at Calder Dynamics. We'd crossed paths years ago during a joint standards committee. Smart, careful, the kind of person who didn't ask why until after she knew how much it mattered. She answered on the second ring. "You don't call unless something's on fire," she said. I watched steam rise from my coffee. "It's not on fire yet," I said, "but the fire doors are unlocked." Silence. Then, "Go on." "I need to know," I said carefully, "if Helix still has interest in non-exclusive access to adaptive lattice compression." Another pause, longer this time. "That patent is sealed tighter than a vault," she said. "So unless this is a hypothetical, it's not." I heard her inhale. "Then you should stop talking." "I can't," I said, "but I can ask you to listen." She didn't interrupt again. Over the next 48 hours, I did nothing that looked like revenge. I responded to emails, I attended meetings, I played the role Ethan had assigned me, technical advisor, quietly sidelined, visibly compliant. Inside, though, I was building something else. Step 1 was verification. I needed to be absolutely certain Ethan had crossed the governance threshold that triggered the temporary open market window. Not suspected, not implied, proven. That meant 3 things. unauthorized alteration of exclusivity terms, bypass of mandatory ethics review, absence of original patent architect consent during a leadership transition. I had all three, but I needed them documented in a way that couldn't be buried. So I sent exactly one email, not to Ethan, not to legal, to compliance. Subject line, request for clarification, clause 7.3b applicability. No accusations, no emotion, just questions. I attached the revised licensing memo, highlighted the altered clause, and cited the font discrepancy as a formatting concern, nothing more. Compliance replied 6 hours later. Short, careful, nervous. We are reviewing the documentation. Thank you for flagging. That was all I needed, because the clock started the moment compliance acknowledged the discrepancy. Step 2 was preparation. People assume licensing deals take months. They do if you're negotiating from scratch. I wasn't. I'd spent years building contingency frameworks, what-if scenarios that never made it into presentations because executives didn't like imagining failure. Inside my personal archive were draft non-exclusive licensing agreements, already vetted by external counsel, already compliant with international IP law, already structured around accelerated execution. They were designed for one scenario only, loss of exclusivity due to governance breach. No one ever thought we'd need them, except me. I customized 3 versions, each tailored to a different competitor's manufacturing and distribution model. Helix Systems, Nordell Tech, Vireo Labs. I didn't pitch them. I waited. Incident C detonated on a Tuesday morning. Ethan sent a company-wide email titled Innovation Velocity Update. In it, he announced that Calder Dynamics was entering an exclusive strategic licensing partnership designed to maximize shareholder value. He named the venture fund. I recognized it instantly. One of his college buddies sat on the board. I forwarded the email to compliance. Then I forwarded it to myself. Then I stood up, walked to the Patent Strategy Vault terminal, and logged in. Viewer only. That was fine. I didn't need to edit anything. I needed to certify something. Under Clause 7.3b, when governance violations occurred during executive transition, the original patent architect retained certification authority to acknowledge the breach. Certification did not require editor access. It required identity verification. I inserted my smart card, entered my credentials, confirmed my biometric scan. The system prompted Certify Governance Non-Compliance? I clicked Yes. A new prompt appeared. Activate Temporary Open Market Window? I didn't hesitate. The calls started coming in within hours. Legal first, then compliance, then Ethan. I ignored them all. Instead, I emailed Mara. One line. Window is open. If Helix wants in, now is the time. She replied 3 minutes later. Terms? I sent the agreement. She called me immediately. You're serious, she said. I always am. This will blow up your company. It already has, I said. They just don't know it yet. She didn't argue. Neither did the other 2 competitors. By the end of the week, all 3 agreements were executed, countersigned, and legally binding. Non-exclusive, irrevocable, perfectly compliant. The monopoly was gone. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Friday. I walked into the room knowing exactly how it would end, but not how it would feel. Ethan was already there, pacing, red-faced, furious. The CEO, his father, sat at the head of the table, jaw tight, eyes tired. Legal lined one side, compliance the other. I took my seat. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. Explain, he demanded. Now. I didn't raise my voice. I slid the policy binder across the table, opened to Appendix D, and turned it so everyone could read. I told you to move fast. I just followed the rules you skipped. No one spoke. Legal started flipping pages. Compliance didn't look at Ethan once. The CEO closed his eyes. And in that silence, I felt something unexpected. Not triumph, relief. Because for the first time since Ethan walked into that building, the truth was louder than his last name. And this time, there was no clause that could save him. No one adjourned the meeting. That was the strangest part. In my experience, when something catastrophic happens in a boardroom, people rush, they whisper, they ask for breaks. Someone always suggests taking this offline. This time, nobody moved. The general counsel, Helen Ross, a woman who survived 4 CEOs and 1 federal inquiry, adjusted her glasses and cleared her throat. Clause 7.3.b is unambiguous, she said slowly. During a leadership transition, any alteration to exclusivity requires written consent from the original patent architect. She glanced at me, which was not obtained. Ethan laughed. Not a confident laugh, a sharp, brittle sound. "This is ridiculous," he said. "He's exploiting a technicality." I finally looked at him. "It's not a technicality. It's a safeguard, one you bypassed." The CEO opened his eyes. "Ethan," he said, quietly, "did you alter the licensing terms without committee approval?" Ethan hesitated. That half-second pause cost him everything. Legal saw it. Compliance saw it. The board saw it. "Yes," Ethan said finally, "but only to speed things up." Helen closed the binder. "By doing so," she said, "you triggered the open market window." The room shifted. Board members leaned forward. One of them, a retired judge, folded his hands and said, "Meaning?" "Meaning," Helen replied, "the company forfeited exclusive licensing protection. Any agreements executed during the window are valid and irreversible." Ethan turned to me, eyes wide now. "You sold it," he said. "You sold our patent." "I licensed it," I corrected, "in accordance with policy." "You had no authority." I reached into my bag and placed my certification receipt on the table. The system disagrees. The CEO stood up slowly. "Ethan," he said, voice shaking despite his effort to control it, "you're relieved of your duties effective immediately." "What?" Ethan snapped. "You can't be serious." "I am," his father said, "and legal will escort you out." Ethan looked around the room searching for support. There was none. As he was let out, he turned back once. "This isn't over," he said. I met his gaze. "It is," I said, "for you." The fallout didn't happen all at once. It unfolded in layers. Press releases, shareholder calls, emergency audits. The market reacted exactly as you'd expect when a company loses exclusive control over its most valuable asset. The stock dipped hard. Analysts asked uncomfortable questions. Regulators started circling. 3 weeks later, the CEO announced his resignation for health reasons. No one believed it. I stayed through the transition, not because I had to, because I wanted to watch the system correct itself. Compliance rewrote procedures. Legal tightened controls. The board commissioned an external review of executive governance. And quietly, very quietly, I started receiving emails from Helix, from Nordell, from Vireo. Consulting offers, advisory roles, tripled compensation. I accepted all 3. Non-overlapping, fully disclosed, perfectly clean. My last day at Calder Dynamics was unremarkable. I packed my office the same way I'd kept it, methodical, precise. Before I left, I returned the policy binder to the archive shelf. Appendix D still intact. Clause 7.3.b unchanged. Some rules don't need updating. They just need to be respected. I don't tell this story because I'm proud of what I did. I tell it because too many people think power comes from titles or last names or how loudly you talk in meetings. Sometimes power comes from reading the fine print, from doing your job so well that when someone tries to erase you, the system itself pushes back. So let me ask you, have you ever had a boss who thought the rules didn't apply to them? If you have, tell me in the comments. And if you want more stories where arrogance meets accountability, make sure you subscribe, because justice is always written somewhere.